Listen, I did film and television studies at university for 3 years. I spent hours reading countless books and articles on subjects spanning from film all the way to television. Not a single one mentioned Hugh Grant once.
I achieved the hardest qualification across any university or college ever, a 2-1 in history. Let me tell you, the only thing that I learned was that we, as a society, have a history of denying and neglecting Hugh Grant's artistic and cultural relevance, not just in this country, but in the entire world.
I met Oscar at a Hugh Grant-themed event I put on at the Students' Union.
It felt as though Diggory and I were the only ones there, and we agreed that there was a Hugh Grant-shaped hole in academia.
We decided to put it right ourselves. We want to show people that he's an icon in acting.
We want to show people he's more than just a bumbling posh guy.
I'm Diggory Waite.
And I'm Oscar Beardmore Gray. And this is...
Taking You for Granted.
Hello and welcome to Taking Hugh for Granted, the podcast in which two Hugh Grant enthusiasts watch every single film starring Hugh Grant in the attempt to answer the simple question: is this film taking Hugh for granted? Is this film good on its own, or does it rely on the bumbling Brit for its acclaim? I'm Diggory Waite, and I'm joined as always by my colleague and fellow Hugh Grant obsessive, Oscar Beardmore Gray. Oscar, how the bloody hell are you doing today, mate?
I'm doing great, Diggs. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I mean, listeners won't realise this, but we haven't spoken for quite some time.
It does feel like a while, doesn't it? Like we just had a bit of a catch up before we went on air.
Yeah,
and it does feel like a little bit of time has passed since our last meeting. But I think we're going to have plenty of episodes coming up in the near future. So there's a lot to look forward to.
Well, because you're absolutely right. I mean, this is, and listeners, some of them might be thinking, "What do you mean you've got loads coming up?" Because technically, as of today, we've done it. Come on.
Big round of applause.
Come on.
Everyone at home's clapping.
They're loving it. Mary Fran G, she's clapping. Everyone's loving it. Guys, this is it. You know, we set out at the beginning of this to watch every single feature, theatrical release, every feature Hugh Grant film, every film of Hugh Grant's that's on his IMDb page. And as of today, we will have seen Travaux, otherwise known as Housewarming, 2005. And that's it. We've done them all. I think there's 43 now, and we've done every single one. The only two that we haven't seen is Operation Fortune, Rose de Guerre, and the Dungeons & Dragons movie, both of which are on the way. They're coming out, and we'll watch them as soon as they're out and we'll review them. But this is it. Oscar, we did it. How does that feel?
It's mental. I mean, maybe you should come back to me at the end of the episode when we finally ticked it off, but it is a monumental achievement. I mean, even yesterday I was having a discussion with a friend who was just sort of saying the dedication. I mean, I don't want to toot our trumpet too much, but like a lot of podcasts, you know, there's a whole lot of them out there that basically get canned after 2 episodes because the people making them just get kind of bored or they realize their idea is terrible. I mean, our idea is terrible, but at least
is terrible. Yeah,
but at least we stuck with it.
We stuck with it. Exactly. It genuinely feels like I don't really finish things very often. I don't finish books. I don't finish TV shows. Like these are things that I should even
finish in other places either.
Yeah, steady. Come on. That's actually a very contentious issue.
That's grotesque.
Yeah, well, you listen to that on my other podcast. But yeah, and I don't really finish things. I sort of start all this stuff. I always have, you know, like big eyes, and I never like actually follow through with anything. And now I'm not talking about poo. I never follow through with things, and I feel like this though. I mean, I know we're saying we should wait till the end of the episode, and you're absolutely right, we should. But I just can't contain my excitement because we've fucking done it. It's so amazing. It's so mad as well because I went on a date the other day, and they were like, "Oh, have you got any interests or hobbies?" And I'm like,
Is that the first thing? It is bad, isn't it? The first thing. I'm a massive Hugh Grant fan.
And they're like, "Oh, Hugh Grant." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, the rom-com guy." And I'm like, "Yep, love that guy. Yes." And they're like, "Oh, do you like his films?" Like, "Yeah, I've seen every single one." Every single one he's ever done, including Privileged, which is the shit he did at Oxford University. Yeah. Anyway, do you want another drink? Why are you getting your coat and leaving? So that's what we've got to. I mean, that's the price we've paid to do this. But hopefully, people at home have found it fun. We found it great fun. But maybe less ado, and we should get into today's film and actually put this in the can. Oscar, what do you know about Travaux?
Well, not a great deal, Diggs, because maybe we should say it at the top. This episode is going to be a bit like the Dawning episode from a few episodes ago, where I wasn't able to watch the film because of copyright issues and problems with finding the film.
Yeah,
but Diggs is going to very kindly run me through things because he was able to get his hands on a real copy, a rare copy. I mean, this thing was going to sell for millions
exactly.
one day.
After we blow the lid on this bad boy, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, Hugh Grant was in that."
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, hopefully, to give you a bit more context and everyone a bit more context at home, we'll have a little synopsis from Synopsis Simon. Take it away.
Travaux. On sait quand ça commence. Directed by Brigitte Rouen and released in 2005. Defense lawyer Chantal Letellier, played by Carole Bouquet, decides to renovate her house so that she has an excuse as to why Frankie, played by Jean-Pierre Castaldi, the man who is smitten with her, shouldn't move into her apartment. As Chantal's workforce begin to renovate, their destructive tendencies make it seem as though they're doing more harm than good. Still, whatever they do may just be enough to impress Chantal's new neighbour, played by Hugh Grant.
A wonderful synopsis from Synopsis Simon there. I mean, usually with those, what I do is I look on IMDb and see what they've written there, and I'll just slightly tweak it and change it. The problem with this film is, on IMDb, the synopsis is batshit insane. It really is. It looks like someone has written it in French, translated it to English, then thought, doesn't look right, translated it back into French, written a few more words and back into English. It doesn't make any sense. The problem is, as well, the whole film, to preface this film Travaux, otherwise known as Housewarming, is all in French. The whole thing is in French.
It's a French film.
It's a French film. And the copy I have, the DVD I got, there's no option to change the audio. There's no dubbing. I couldn't even change it to Spanish if I wanted to. It's literally all just in French. It didn't even give you the option of subtitles, for God's sake. So we really were just going in blind. So unlike The Dawning, where you could actually tell me what was going on, I cannot really tell you what happened in the film.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but I watched the whole thing, all 1 hour and 32 minutes of it, and I can tell you vaguely what was going on.
Well, I mean, maybe you could start by saying, was it a good film? Because what I've seen on IMDb,
what do they say?
It's got some good reviews. People 8 out of 10 saying this is, an hour and a half of great stuff that highlights the problems of inequality in the Parisian house market. I mean, I don't know if you got that from your limited French data.
Yeah, my French is extremely limited. Did I get that? No, what I did, but that's very interesting because it feels like I'm getting there. So what I understand, and this is a combination of a synopsis I read online and just actually watching the film, is we have a lawyer called Chantal, and she, I think, is representing some illegal immigrants. Either way, there's some guy who's trying to chirps her, and he's trying to flirt with her and stuff, and she wants to try and get rid of him. To try and do this, she wants to renovate her house, and she employs some, again, I believe, illegal immigrants to do this. They do a terrible, shoddy job. It actually kind of reminded me of Small Time Crooks. But obviously,
that's not good.
Exactly. Yeah, that is not good. Because there's water flying everywhere, and they keep falling over, and they keep just knocking through walls and things. Essentially, that sort of goes on for about an hour. The film's an hour and a half. In the middle is an hour of them destroying her house, and this guy trying to flirt with her the whole time. And essentially, it all wraps up where they're getting the house together, sort of. Then the police, they're having this party there. The police come in, try and arrest all the illegal immigrants. Chantal, this film is slightly
surrealist in that she starts doing a little dance, I think, at one point. Not sure what that has to do with anything. The immigrants, it all seems fine. They then fix the house that they've broken, and they all have breakfast together. She waves them goodbye, but whilst we think it's all rosy, this guy called Frankie starts walking up the stairs, and we think he's going to come and knock on her door again. We think, bloody hell. But he slips and falls, but the door still knocks. And she opens up the door, and it's Hugh Grant.
So, can you give me some context here? It was just the very end of the very last scene. Hugh is in it.
Hugh is in it, and he's at the door, and he speaks French, and it's all amazing, and he looks fucking class. But literally, it's right. So, Oscar, I was freaking out because it got.
You
to
must
the
have
point,
thought that he wasn't going to be in the film.
I was so worried because I was like, right, we're at death's door. Like the film is going to end in any minute and the credits are going to start rolling. I can sense the end is coming. And he isn't at all. And I thought, he's on it on IMDb, but we've had this before with I'm Still Here, where it says he's in things and he's not. There's been no whiff of him so far. I eagle-eyed watched this thing. And then I was like, well, let's just cross-reference quickly. I'll go on Wikipedia, because sometimes Wikipedia, they have their filmography list for Hugh Grant. I'll check it on there. No mention.
No mention at all, yeah.
You go on Hugh Grant's Wikipedia page, nothing. You go on his filmography Wikipedia page, nothing. It's blank. 2005 is blank. And I was like, oh no, I've bought this film. Not only have I bought this film, this French DVD, and sent it over from France, I've then bought this DVD player that can play French DVDs. Like,
did you actually?
Yeah, mate. This is insane. I've spent maybe like £50 on this whole thing.
I love that.
It's mad. And I was like, so literally, there's this meme going around on TikTok of like, people watching the Marvel film and going like, oh, let's go. That was literally me when the door opened and then Hugh Grant was standing. I was like, oh, let's go. I mean, honestly, it was so good. But yeah, and he's there and he says something in French. I've got no idea what he says.
Excusez-moi de vous déranger. Je suis votre nouveau voisin. Je voulais juste vous prévenir que je vais faire un petit peu de bruit. Je suis en travaux.
Entrez.
Merci.
And then he walks.
He says something about fish. He hands her a fish.
That's it.
Je vous ai porté des petits poissons.
C'est gentil.
Yes, exactly. That's it. Fish. Very good. I mean,
I know. Look, I remembered something from year 4.
Where? Love that. And then he says the words that I do understand. He goes,
"Wow, that's beautiful."
About the house.
In English. You got that bit because he said it in English.
Yeah. What would that be in French? Say.
Let's not test our beau.
C'est beau. And then she's in then the next, it just cuts to her, Chantal, in a hammock, smoking, which kind of makes me think, does that suggest perhaps that they maybe could be?
You know who Chantal reminded me of from that? Because Dig sent me the clip. She looked a bit like Kristen Scott Thomas to me.
Do you think? I kind of see that. I definitely see that.
Maybe that's what they were thinking. Like, we'll pair up the four weddings thing worked. So they probably weren't thinking that, but that was just my initial reaction.
No, it's true. And also, there's a scene or two in this where Chantal goes to like a party and she goes on a date, and she puts on a dress. And it kind of reminded me actually now you say, because like Kristen Scott Thomas wore a lot of those dresses in like obviously for weddings and stuff because of all the weddings, and Chantal looked fabulous in this film. She looked great. So actually, back to your original question, was this a good film? I don't know. I actually have no idea because it's very chaotic. That's why it kind of reminded me of Small Time Crooks. And also, it in places it's a bit surrealist. Like at the beginning, she does this like weird dance thing. At the end, she does a dance thing. At the end, also, when she's like tidying up, she starts Snow White style, just sort of, when in Snow White when all the birds are like flying around her and like, is that Snow White? And they're like dressing her.
Cinderella?
It might be Cinderella. One of them. Anyway, in this one, she just starts she puts one of the plates in the dishwasher, and they all just start floating, and they all start to place themselves in there, and like the tablecloth just takes itself up and like folds itself up. It's all a bit weird, and the CGI is awful, but it's like that kind of
attracts me to the film a bit more. So actually now I'm like, maybe if I could understand it, I'd like it.
Well, yeah, with that caveat, like obviously you couldn't understand it, but did you have the impression that if you did understand it, you would have enjoyed it a lot?
I think this is interesting. I was trying to think what I'd rate it out of 5 stars. I still don't know whether it would make it. I don't think it's never going to be any higher than a 3.
Okay.
But it probably is a 2.
And it would have been a 1 if Hugh wasn't in it, or it would have been a 0.
It would have been a 0 if Hugh wasn't in it. Yeah, I mean, the idea I'd spend £50 shipping over a fucking DVD and a DVD player to watch it, no chance. But yeah, and obviously the bit with Hugh at the end was just so perfect because literally I've been waiting the whole film, and then it was just class. So that made it really good. Yeah.
Well, you're listening to Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted on the radio. Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted. Oh, the podcast show.
I mean, what did you make of Hugh Grant's French? Because, of course, I don't know if you remember, but we have seen Hugh speak French in another film, in The Bengali Night, if you recall.
Yes, he teaches
Gayatri a bit of French. So,
yeah.
I don't know, but I think there is a bit of francophone in old Hugh, isn't there? I think he
is.
I really think that Hugh loves that kind of English-French rivalry, but secretly really admires the French.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like how the English. It feels like, you know how the old English used to constantly, like you said, the rivalry was we were always fighting them, but we always wanted their land, and we always all of the kings used to hang out in Burgundy all the time and drink the wine and stuff, and revel in the culture. Hugh Grant is exactly the same. You know, he's English and British through and through, but he wants to go and conquer France and hang out there.
Yeah, definitely, and he enjoys he probably enjoys the day out at the Cannes Film Festival and
exactly
things like that.
How do you reckon this came about? Because at the end of the film, what's sick as well is the film ends, and firstly they say something really sweet, actually, which I translated into English because they wrote it down. It says the film ends and it dedicates itself to all those who have crossed the seas to come and enrich us. So they're talking about immigrants. So well on board with that, love that. But the very first bit of the credits, it says merci, Monsieur Hugh Grant. And who played Le Voisin, aka the neighbour.
I would be fascinated to know how he got involved with this.
Exactly. How did he get involved with this? Who did he meet?
He must know the director or something.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows.
Maybe, literally, I wonder if it felt like he was in France and someone was just like, yo, if you're in France, just stop by at the end of the film. You know? Yeah. Maybe they were just like, oh, we'll pay for everything. I don't know, he must have been doing someone a favour. This is what we should ask him when we have our interview with him, which we will at some point.
I'm just having a cursory glance at the director's credits to see if anything rings bells there. But I mean, I could just imagine Hugh being in and around Paris, kind of twiddling his thumbs, maybe doing 1 or 2 projects. Maybe he meets someone at a bar. So, I'm just making up a story now. I mean, I'm as bad as all those Daily Mail reporters.
Yeah, exactly. He hates. You're terrible. No, I reckon it must be something like that. He must have met someone. They said, "Oh, do you mind doing this?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, of course." And that's how it happened because
it was also a bit of a downtime in his career, a little bit, wasn't it? We have identified these periods. Kind of, he's obviously had that big hiatus between kind of 2009 and 2013. That was a sort of 4 or 5 year break, effectively. But he didn't really do anything between 2003 and 2006, did he? Am I right in saying that?
Well, so obviously we have Bridget Jones' Edge of Reason, which was absolutely class, and then that was 2004. And then Housewoman comes
in lyrics at 2007.
Exactly, and obviously, but you got American Dreams in 2006, but. We don't really think about that.
Yeah, let's botch that one from the memory.
But it is true. I mean, that is basically, you're absolutely right, because it's getting to the point then where he's starting to do a film kind of every other year, even if that. Because up until then, it's like, you got a few coming out in 2003, you got 4 coming out in 2002, he's doing a lot of stuff. So you're right. It's I think the beginning of that proper downturn. And even this, like we say, you can't really call this a proper film. He's in it for all of 8 seconds. But there you go.
Well, we also know Hugh's love of French culture because he loves Pret a Manger.
Yes,
Pret a Manger being the height of French culture, of course.
Of course. Yeah, we've given France and this film Hugh Grant, and they've given us Pret a Manger, which again, if people don't know what that is at home, some people international, some international listeners, I think, were telling us that in Canada or maybe America,
it's in New York.
It's in New York. They've got Pret in New York. Pret is like a sort of bougie sandwich place in the UK, where basically if you work in the city, everyone goes there for lunch. You sort of, everyone knows it and everyone goes. And
it's like a rite of passage. You have to go and get your Pret.
Exactly. You got to go get. They do baguettes. They do rolls. They do
salads.
Posh salads. Very posh salads. I got obsessed with the tuna salad. I probably had tuna salad every working day for 6 months, which can't be good for my mercury levels. But it was great. And Hugh Grant is always in the same one. Like there's like a section of TikTok which is just people spotting Hugh Grant in
the Fulham Road, the Fulham Road Pret a Manger in Chelsea. So
there you go.
If you really want to go Hugh spotting,
yeah,
that's your spot.
Look over there. Hugh Grant's in a Pret. Look over there. He's holding a baguette.
This is a few years ago now, but I worked at this place very briefly, and I sat next to their director of finance, and I mentioned the podcast that we were doing. So to be fair, it must have been just at the start. Maybe it was even when it was just an idea. And he said to me, he's like, "Oh, Hugh Grant, he used to always take his kids to the Pret that was opposite me for breakfast." Every day without fail, he would take them for breakfast at this Pret. And then someone else that was sat there was like, "Well, why would you do that? Why don't you just cook for them?" And we both looked at him and we were like, "It's Hugh Grant. Why do you think he'd cook for them? Like, why would you bother cooking for your kids and you can just take them to Pret?" Which, one, Hugh Grant loves and he'll love the breakfast, and two, he doesn't have to do it because it's, he's got all the money in the world. Like, who cares? So I'm well on board with that. And there you go. So he knew Hugh Grant spotting before anyone else, and that was what put me onto the Pret thing. So that's why I did the song, Hugh Grant and a Pret. Little did I know that how much of a thing it was actually going to be.
Taking he for granted. Taking he for granted. Taking he for granted. What did you think, lads? Were they taking he for granted?
2 years ago and a month, Diggory, we launched the podcast Taking He for Granted. I can't believe it. We have got to the end of his official filmography.
Yeah.
Of all his feature films. And the last one in the can is this one, Travaux. Are we taking it for granted?
Wow. I feel it's a momentous occasion. We've got there, the last one. 2005, Travaux. I mean, I hate to go out on a, yes, it's been taking you for granted. But the thing is, right, when he opens that door, he looks smashing. He looks so good. And it's just such a buzz to see him in there. And do you know what? I think the fact that they play so much, there's so much riding on him being there. Like, it's the total, like, this freaky guy, Frankie, he's the complete antithesis. He's sexy, he's at the door, he's speaking French. It's this huge build-up, it's this huge moment. And basically, it's the moment in the film where the lady Chantal is like, phew, everything's okay. It's not just okay, it's great. And he's a huge part of that. And so I feel like, in a weird way, it almost reminds me of Apocalypse Now, where, for those of you that have seen that film, where the film is building up and building up and building up to this point where you see Marlon Brando for the first time and you're like, what the fuck, that's amazing. And you might think the films are taking him for granted because it hasn't shown him sooner, but this film is exactly the same. Less equals more in this film more than anything else. Hugh Grant is there. He is the pinnacle, he is the ending, he is the finish, he is the climax. And I mean that in every sense of the word. It's class. So, and I'm sure if I can understand what the fuck they were saying, I'm sure I'd think it's even better. So, Oscar, I'm going to say this film has not been taking you for granted.
Fantastic. Well,
yes.
I mean, I don't think I can add too much to that, apart from when you are only sent one clip from the entire movie, and it's the only clip in the film with Hugh Grant in it. That's my only picture of the film. I don't have anything else to go on.
Yeah.
And what I've got to go on is pure ecstasy.
Exactly. That's top quality stuff.
So I'm going to have to say, we're not taking you for granted.
Let's rock. That's what I'm talking about. Wow. 43 up, 43 down, I believe, is the number of films we've done, I think. We've also obviously done loads of TV shows, and that's all extras. And it's been great fun. And like we've said, guys, the fun doesn't stop there. There's more films to come, and we've also found, TV movies. There's TV shows to talk about. So we'll be doing all of those. So stay strapped in, because there's a lot more fun to be had.
I mean, chaps, ladies out there, I thought this was coming to an end, and then I had a cursory look through like the really old TV stuff, and the amount of heroes out there who put stuff on YouTube. I mean, you guys this is incredible. So we've got a few more coming down the pipe. We've got Champagne Charlie. We've got a film called Till We Meet Again with Courtney Cox.
That's
Hugh
very
Grant
exciting.
starring.
Courtney Cox, people.
Yeah,
Monica from Friends.
It's mental.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of others as well. There's a TV series called Last Place on Earth, which is Hugh Grant and Bill Nighy in the South Pole with Scott and Amerston. Like, imagine that shit. Like, that sounds fantastic.
That's gonna be class. There's a great story about that. That's one of the first TV things he ever did.
I know. So anyway, you thought you could get rid of us, but we're probably going to stick around for another few months. So
I'm not fucking leaving.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And also now it's got to the point where maybe we can even start looking back at some of the old classics we looked at before. Who knows? And bringing some guests along. But look, all that to come. We've got weeks more of content for you guys. We're not stopping until you tell us to stop.
Yeah, exactly. No one's told us yet, so
exactly.
We're just ploughing along.
We're just ploughing on. And we're going to keep milking the Hugh Grant cow. Wonderful. Well, my mouth is covered in milk, so I best go and wipe that off. Until then, keep abreast of us and everything we're up to on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. On Instagram and Facebook, we're at Taking Hugh for Granted. On Twitter, we're at Taking Hugh. Other than that, guys, as we say, wherever you listen to this now, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're following, because there's more content to come. Thank you so much if you've been here with us for however long. It all means the world to us, and we really do appreciate it. But the party goes on. There's still drinks at the bar, is what we're saying. And we'll see you next time.
I mean, for this episode, we just say au revoir.
Au revoir. Wonderful.
Taking Hugh for Granted is produced, edited and presented by Diggory Waite and Oscar Beardmore Gray. The producers of Taking Hugh for Granted would like to state that this podcast is in no way associated with the actor Hugh John Mungo Grant, nor does it endorse his views or represent him in any way. Instead, by creating this podcast, Oscar and Diggory hope to celebrate Hugh's illustrious career, reliving his old classics and shedding light on some of his hidden gems. Hugh, if you're listening, we hope you approve.